Hello guys, this is Oroth and a warm welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're once again gonna look at a training dummy build, and I was planning to showcase a monk build that is very strong. But then I somehow managed to figure out a way to deal massive amounts of damage with the crusader, and I was kind of shocked by the results I managed to achieve. So I thought it would be more interesting to make this video first. And before we begin, I know that whenever I make a training dummy build, there is some comments about that the build is not useful for other types of content, etc, etc. And I've said it before, but these training dummy runs I do for fun. I do them to see what is the top speed of a character. So how much damage am I able to juice out playing any different class. And I also have to say that when you figure out how to improve your damage a lot, then you can also do minor tweaks to those builds and make them perform very well in other types of content as well. For example, I made a training dummy build where I showcased a necromancer a few months back, and I received comments on that video that said that okay, this will not be useful anywhere because you need a lot of setup, etc. But in the end, I managed to tweak the build just a little bit to perform extremely well in Gauntlet 3. And I also managed to keep the summons alive, which can be a problem sometimes for some types of content. So when you watch this video, take it for what it is. It's damage science, and hopefully we can learn a thing or two from it. But let's begin today's video and jump straight into the timeline. First, we're going to look on the skills I'm using for this build. Then we're going to look at the set pieces. We're of course going to look at all the essences. We're going to go through all of the legendary gems. I'm going to show you which Paragon tree I'm using. We're going to talk about the Warband effects that I receive. We're also going to mention which curse effect you can go for. We're going to make an attributes breakdown. And finally, we're also going to look at the run itself. And I'm going to explain to you what you should do and in which order. So, yeah, let us begin. If we start by looking at the skills, I'm using Punish, I'm using Holy Banner, I'm using Condemn, Judgment, and Falling Sword. So yeah, this is the skill setup. If we look on the set I'm using, and here is a little bit of a surprise perhaps, I'm using 4 pieces of the Shepherd set, and I'm using 4 pieces of the Vitus Urge. You will understand the idea of the build a little bit further on in this video, but I did experiment replacing, or I actually started off using Angmet's, the Angmet set. But I wanted to try if I could maybe improve a little bit by using the Shepherd set, and I use 4 pieces because I'm looking for some extra critical hit chance. And I performed very well with the Angmet set as well, and it's possible that they are quite similar, but in the end I managed to juice out just a little bit more using the 4 pieces Shepherd set instead. And on top of that I use 4 pieces of Vitus Urge, and this I do both for the beneficial effect duration but also for the attack speed. And in this build we're going to utilize both my own damage, but we're also going to get some help from summons. And yeah, you will understand the idea when we move on. So let's start looking at the essences. For the helmet piece I use Errant Ignition, and what it does is that it turns my banner into a fire banner, sort of. And what it does is that it buffs all the allies within the banner zone, so that their primary attacks apply a burn effect on the target. And this is a very strong banner actually. And when I did the first testing at the dummy, I found out that okay, the fire banner is actually doing a lot of damage when I look on the breakdown. And if I go in as myself, it will only affect me. So then I was thinking, okay, if this effect is doing this much damage, is there any way I can do to improve this damage? And of course, as a main class necromancer, I thought of summons, because those also counts as allies. So if I manage to create more summons, I will also be able to apply this fire banner buff onto more targets. So this was the theory crafting that went on in my head, and how can I achieve this? And I'm going to show that in just a little bit. But first, let's look at this chest piece, which is Akarat's Rebuke. And what it does is that whenever you use Condemn, your primary attack also unleashes a lightning bolt that damages all nearby targets. And this works very well together with an offhand that we will look on a little bit later. And that also synchronizes very well with the fire banner. But I'm going to explain it when we have all the essences in front of us. And if you look on the shoulders, I'm using Cradle of Pebbles. As I mentioned, I wanted to have more targets that receive the buff from the fire banner, and this shoulder turns my judgment into a summon. So that's why I chose to include it. I also have quite a lot of summon damage on my Reforge and on my magical attributes, on my set items. So yeah, the summon itself will also do quite a lot of damage. And it also synchronizes well with the Shepherd set, because each summon will increase my critical hit chance. So yeah, it was a very good pick for this build. If we look on the pants here, I'm using Quiz of Scorn. And what it does is that it increases the damage done by Condemn, the more harmful effects that are on the target. And with this build, we are going to apply a lot of harmful effects. We're going to remove them very fast again, but then reapply them. And that's the whole point of this build. For the first main hand, I'm using the Observer. And what it does is that it increases the damage by my punish by up to 57%. And this will, of course, be at the maximum buff when I am at the dummy. And the second main hand I'm using is the Blade Prison. And this turns my Falling Sword into like a circle of swords that shoots electricity on the target. And to be honest, the Falling Sword is not super strong. It's just like a filler skill in this build, and it's possible that there is something else that would improve damage just a little bit. But I tried playing around with different versions of Falling Sword, and this was the one that performed the best. And I know that there are other skills that I could use that do more damage than Falling Sword, but then I would have to replace other vital essences on the offhand slots, for example. So yeah, this was my go-to choice, but there might be a better option. I haven't done too much testing. On my first offhand, I'm using Mete Out Mercy. And what it does is that it increases the damage done by my punish by 57% to any enemy that suffers total loss of control. And that's the good thing here, since I'm using the Judgment for the extra summon. Whenever I use the Judgment skill, I will also apply a stun. And the stun effect is useful at the training dummy. So whenever I use Judgment, I will increase the damage done by punish by 57%. And this stun effect with the potency and everything going on will be active for around 5 seconds. So it's a good option for this build. And finally, for the second offhand, I'm using Torrential Refrain. And what it does is that whenever Condemn hits a target, that target will take all the damage remaining from all the continual damage effects. And here is where the magic happens. And now I'm going to explain to you the idea of this build. I'm using the Fire Banner together with 1 Judgment summon, and I'm also getting 3 clones from my Echoing Shade. So in total there will be 5 targets that are affected by the Fire Banner. And whenever one of these targets hits the training dummy, it will apply a burn effect. And this burn effect can stack up to 3 times, I believe. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we have this chest piece that turns our primary attack into also shooting lightning bolts, which is condemn damage. So whenever I hit the target with my primary attack, I will, thanks to the second offhand, the torrential refrain, do massive amounts of damage from all the continual damage effects that are constantly reapplied. So as you can see, all of these essences, they work very well together, and I didn't expect it to be possible to deal this much damage with Crusader, but this is what I managed to come up with after just 30 minutes of testing. And maybe there is ways to improve this even more, but I really wanted to share this with you because I think that this could be meta breaking. Because when we talk about different classes, we are always putting the Crusader at the lowest DPS. But yeah, to be honest, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I was actually planning to make a monk video to highlight a very strong monk build, but this build has done more damage than what I managed to do with the monk, so I just had to release this as soon as possible. So these are the essences, and I can also mention here that maybe you could argue that I should use the other primary attack instead, the Sacred Fire, because there are 2 main hand slots that affects that skill, and one of them also applies an extra continual damage effect on the target. But if we add up the different bonuses we get here on the Punish, the damage increase actually outweighs the positive effects from the Sacred Fire. So I did more damage with Punish, also thanks to this first offhand I'm using, because I will apply a total loss of control effect on the training dummy. So that's why I chose Punish over Sacred Fire. Let's move on and look on the legendary gems. I'm using one 1-star gem, and that's the Berserker's Eye. I've told you many times before, this is my favorite 1-star gem in the game, and this is a staple for any class that wants to do more DPS. It doesn't matter what your resonance is, Berserker's Eye is a very strong gem. It both increases the damage I do by 16%, and it gives me 2% critical hit chance. And this is at rank 10, so a very strong gem. The other gem I'm using is Mother's Lament, and it's at rank 10, and it gives me 32%, if it's 32 or 36% critical hit chance for 6 seconds. And this is also prolonged by my beneficial effect duration, so this will be active both for 5 seconds or 10 seconds dummy runs. So a super strong gem for all types of PvE content, and also in PvP it's strong. The next 2-star gem I'm using is Pain Clasp. It gives me 24% damage increase whenever a target is affected by a continual damage effect. And as explained in the previous section where we went through the essences, we will constantly apply new continual damage effects on the target. And I also have to mention here, when we're talking about continual damage effects, I already explained why this build is so strong, thanks to the Condemn and thanks to the Fire Banner. But what's good to know about damage over time effects is that the first tick of damage happens instantly. So this means that with this build, I do get a lot of damage from the Condemn effect, but I also get a lot of damage from the first ticks of damage over time effects. So when we look on the run a little bit later in this video, you're gonna see that there are so many numbers on the dummy, so it looks kind of crazy. The next 2-star gem I'm using is Fervent Fang, and my Fervent Fang is currently only at rank 9. I will get it to rank 10 next battle pass. So when I'm able to get it rank 10, I will be also able to up the damage a little bit further on this build. What's good to know about the Fervent Fang is that it doesn't affect the damage of my summons. But in this case, a lot of my damage comes from myself and from the Fire Banner and from Condemn. So this is a good choice for this build. In general, when you have a build that uses summons, you should not use Fervent Fang. The next 2-star gem I'm using is Cutthroat's Grin. And what it does is that it increases my critical hit chance whenever I stand behind the target. And this is a super strong gem for all types of PvE content. It's the same thing though as with Fervent Fang, that Cutthroat's Grin does not affect your summons. So the damage done by my Judgment summon and by my Echoing Shade summons, they are not affected by Cutthroat's Grin either. The next gem I'm using, and this is of course a star of this build as well, is the Echoing Shade. I have it at rank 9. No, it's at rank 8, sorry. I have it at rank 8 and it gives me 3 clones. So this is 3 summons that will be affected by the Fire Banner. And I have always said that Echoing Shade is the strongest gem possible for a typical summoner build. But I didn't expect that I would be able to make it work this well with the Crusader. So this is a bit of a surprise. But without the Echoing Shade, the damage goes down quite a lot. It's still very strong without the Echoing Shade, but if you have an Echoing Shade, you should use it for this build. And you don't have to get it to rank 8, of course. On rank 1 to 2, you will have only 1 clone. From rank 3 to 6, you will have 2 clones. And from rank 7 to 10, you will have 3 clones. So my recommendation is that it's always good to have an Echoing Shade at least rank 3. It's a super strong gem, and apparently it works with a lot of classes, as we can see now. The next gem I'm using is a Bottled Hope, and it's currently at rank 8. And it gives me 21.5% damage increase whenever I apply a buff. And this effect can happen every 20 seconds. And this cooldown actually works for each target. So if I apply a buff to myself, I get the Bottled Hope effect. And if I 3 seconds later apply a buff to a summon, that summon will get the Bottled Hope effect. And what's good about Bottled Hope and summons is that it actually gives the double effect. So if I'm able to activate it both on myself and on my summons at the same time, so they are both active at the same time, then the effect will be doubled. So it's a super strong gem for any types of build that involves summons. And of course, it's also a good gem in general for anyone. So that's why I chose to include it into this build. Finally, I'm also using Blood-Soaked Jade. It's a quite straightforward gem. It gives me a flat damage increase. And I have it currently at rank 9, and it gives me 21.5% damage increase. I am more than halfway to rank 10. So when I'm able to get my Fervent Fang and Blood-Soaked Jade to rank 10, yeah, then it will be even more damage. So yeah, this is the gem setup I'm using, and it's working super well. I'm also gonna show you just briefly the Paragon tree that I have active, and it's the Weaver tree. It's just a staple Paragon tree at the moment to increase your DPS. So use the Weaver Paragon. For the Warband room, I would go for the damage increase. That gives you 3.5% extra damage. And here you can also see the Warband remnants that I have in my Warband. I could try to look for a little bit of upgrades into this setup by farming some more Purge the Depths, but this set is still quite strong. If we look on the invocation effects, I currently have damage increased by 15% for 6 seconds. But I don't have an efficient way to activate this effect right now. And with this build, I could probably also use the invocation that summons a fire hydra to just get one extra target that is affected by the fire banner. But as of now, I don't have an efficient way to activate it, so there are still room for improvement. When we talk about the curse effect, I would recommend you to play around with the vexed effect when you use this build. I have not used this curse effect properly when doing my dummy runs with this crusader build, but if I would try to really optimize everything, I would try to time everything so that it happens, so that the curse effect triggers at the correct time when I'm doing my run. So yeah, here are still some more rooms for improvement. Here is also an attribute breakdown of what my items look like and my reforges. And if we start by looking on the set pieces, I have a total of 38% damage done by my summons on my neck, on my gloves, and on my rings. And the maximum I can get is 40%. So this is something that I've almost been able to maximize. If we look on my waist, my feet, my chest, and my legs, I have a total of 25.5% beneficial effect duration, and the maximum is 30%. So I've worked quite hard to max this as much as possible as well. If you look on my head, on my shoulders, on my main hands, and on my off hands, I have a total of 23% critical hit chance. The optimal value would be 24%, so this is almost perfected. And then I also have critical hit damage and primary attack damage at 27%, which is the optimal value. I would say though that I've mentioned before that my favorite magical attribute after critical hit chance is critical hit damage. For a normal summon build, primary attack damage and critical hit damage is about the same strength, as long as you have managed to pump up your critical hit chance a lot. I would say though that for this build, primary attack damage does not affect the damage from the fire banner, so in this case it would be better if I had only critical hit chance and critical hit damage. So if now I have some items with primary attack damage instead of critical hit damage, and that's not optimal for this specific build. Finally, I also want to show my reforges. I have damage done by my summons at 31.5%. 32% is the max, so almost perfect. I have 22.5% beneficial effect duration. The maximum is 24%. I have 23.5% critical hit damage. The maximum is 24%. I have 13% skill damage, where 16% is max. And finally, I have 31% primary attack damage, while 32% is max. So my reforges, they look very good. And this is something that I have been working on since the launch of the game. So if you want to adapt your build, you don't have to feel stressed, because this is a time-consuming process where you will have to use a lot of reforge stones. So do it step by step and try to better the slot that is worst at the moment. I have, for example, tried to up my beneficial effect duration from 2.5% to 3% on one of my items, and I think I wasted 600 reforge stones already without any luck. So this is a long process. Don't feel stressed. Yeah, so finally, let us look on the video here. It's quite an easy setup. I attack a few times just to trigger Mother's Lament. And if it triggers at 2 seconds, I want to wait until 21 seconds has passed. And when I reach the 11 or 12 second mark, I start attacking, because now I want to summon my clones from Echoing Shade. And at 21 seconds, I'm gonna use very quickly, banner, falling sword, judgment, then I reset timer, and then I use condemn. And as you can see, the damage output is crazy. So yeah, this is a crusader build that I think will change the meta for crusaders quite a lot, because now there's actually a way for crusaders to deal massive amounts of damage as well. If I go out in a dungeon, I only have to make very minor tweaks to this build. And what I would do if I go to a dungeon is that I will replace the shoulder with the draw and quarter duration shoulder, and I will change my pants to the lightning horse, the newest essence from Inferno 4. And yes, I will lose a summon, but I will still have my clones from the Echoing Shade. And what's very good is that when you are on your horse, you are dealing attacks very fast if you use the primary attack. And this will help you to spawn the Echoing Shade clones extremely fast. So this is super strong for dungeons, and this is also super strong for raids and other types of content. And what is also very important to remember here is that when you are in a dungeon, you're also in a party. So basically, even if you don't have Echoing Shade, you will replace those 3 clones with your party members instead. So your damage output will still be crazy, because instead of your summons, you will have your teammates standing in the banner. And yeah, the fire banner is really combined with this condemn effects that we have been talking about. It's super strong. So I really hope that you try this build out and that you like it, and that you like this video. And before we say goodbye, I want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening wherever you are. And to all my clan members in our new clan Nyx, I would also like to extend my deepest gratitude. So take care, bye bye.